Ken, I know you're coming off the Braves Dodgers series, so you wrote a little bit about Mookie Betts and how he's doing this year. I feel like we haven't really talked about him enough. So can you enlighten us on some things that you learned from the weekend?
Yeah, it's interesting with Mookie. People say, well, maybe his offense was down for a period because he's playing shortstop, putting so much emphasis into that. And he said, no, that's not it at all. What happened was that when he lost the 20 pounds or so with that illness he had back in late March, it took him time to kind of get his strength back, get his bat speed back, and he was chasing bat speed. That's how he put it. Chasing bat speed because he's below average in that department even when healthy, and he wanted to get it back up there. And then he created some bad habits trying to chase bat speed. So lately, he's been really good again, and I expect him to continue to be really good. He's Mookie Betts. And as for shortstop, defensively, guys, he has played really well. He's rating really well according to the advanced metrics. It's still a little early with the sample size to get too deep in the woods with that kind of thing, but he's playing well, and that's the main thing right now.
What else are the Dodgers? I mentioned this the other day. Shohei hit his 9th homer, but at the time he had 8 homers, 11 RBIs. Where's the RBIs for Shohei?
Well, I haven't looked at it that closely. It's interesting, though. He is running again, a 10th stolen base last night, and people were saying, well, he's going to pitch this year. He won't run. It seems to me that he's going to run until he pitches, and we've seen that so far. I'll tell you one other thing about the Dodgers that's interesting, and it speaks to the lower half of their lineup, lower part of their lineup. Andy Pages has really come on of late, and he's a guy who kind of is a natural hitter. Dave Roberts calls hitting Pages superpower, and he's a guy who just kind of needed to get more athletic in the box, stop thinking so much, stop being so robotic, so mechanical. They basically said, Teoscar Hernandez told him this, Dave Roberts told him this, just go play, man. Just get in there, react. What you do in the cage, that's preparation for the game. It doesn't mean you have to carry everything you're doing into the game from the cage. And it seems to have liberated him. And here was a guy who was a big question at the start of the season, and now it looks like he might be part of their core group, integral to what they do.
Hey, Ken, one more thing on the Dodgers. Are they going to be able to go college rotation the whole year? Yamamoto Friday, Sasaki Saturday. I know it was Glasnow on Sunday, but I guess it's Dustin May now. Sunday's his day. Are they going to be able to carry this through the whole year? Because every start Yamamoto's had, Sasaki had, and it was Glasnow, has been Friday, Saturday. It's like a college rotation.
No, and they don't plan to do that. And in fact, the way their schedule shapes up, AJ, they're going to go, I don't know if it's a pure 5-man, but Yamamoto would be pitching on the 5th day, his next turn. In fact, Dave Roberts on Friday night took him out an inning earlier than he might have because the next start will be on the standard 4 days rest. So it's not going to be a college rotation all season long. They're going to manipulate it as they always do. We know that. But because of the schedule, they've got to go to a more normal grouping right now.
Ken, in spirit of this segment, the Inside Scoop, I need to get an inside scoop on a subject that's been talked about a lot lately. So I promise I won't go too far into this. But you joined Jason Stark and Eno Saris in writing the story about the strike zone changing and the things that have gone along with that. What I am fascinated to know is how did the strike zone becoming smaller come to your attention? How did this story even come about? Because I'm always fascinated in how you guys learn about this stuff and then decide to pursue that story.
Trevor, I won't give exact names here, but I'll tell you the idea of how it came about. So basically, Jason was in the clubhouse one day, and I won't name the team even, but a pitcher on that team, prominent pitcher, kind of came up to him and said, hey, what is going on with the zone? And from that point, Jason discussed that with him and kind of thought, you know what, this is something we should look into. It's something we started looking into. And at The Athletic, we have the ability, because we have so many writers, to kind of ask everyone on our staff, all right, ask your pitchers this, ask your catchers this, ask your managers this. And that's what we did. And we collected information. We have also maybe the best data-driven writer in the world, Eno Saris. So he started looking at the data and confirmed that what the pitchers were telling us was true, that the zone is different. And then in talking to officials from Major League Baseball and the union, we learned that in the umpire CBA, the definition of the buffer zone changed. The buffer zone being that area around the zone that's actually outside the strike zone. And it was 2 inches all the way around. In the umpire's CBA, they changed it to 3/4 of an inch. So basically, Trevor, it was a step-by-step process, but it began with the player, actually multiple players, coming to us and saying, hey, man, this doesn't seem right. And it's funny because when we went to Major League Baseball, we kept telling them, this is player driven. This is not us trying to stir it up. We often get accused of that, and sometimes we're doing it, and sometimes we're not. But in this case, this was player driven.
Speaking of players, Duh Boone, as he used to want to be called, is Duh, D-A, Boone, is now a hitting coach. Did anybody see this coming? Is this one of the more I don't know if this ranks as high as Sean Casey getting the Yankees job last year, because at least Casey was on MLB Network and he was around. But Bret Boone, I saw him in San Diego. He was just hanging out at the beach and hanging out at his home and, went and saw the Braves, and that was it. Now he's the hitting coach. Is this one of the crazier moves in baseball?
I was surprised, AJ, very surprised. Now, I know the Boone, I remember him as the Boone, was doing a podcast. I even was a guest on his podcast, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And it was pretty entertaining. It was a good podcast. But I guess now you can go from doing a podcast to becoming a major league hitting coach. Now, certainly he was a major league hitter in his day, he had a good career, but he has a prior relationship with Bochy, and that seemed to be part of this. And maybe they just want someone with his kind of energy and his feel for the game. It's interesting to me that a guy coming into the game now, having been out a few years, it's a whole different world, as you guys know, with the information that coaches have to process and relay to their players, all of that. But the Rangers, have 2 other coaches to do that. They have a hitting coach, Justin Veal, and an assistant hitting coach. Perhaps Boone is just going to be, this would be oversimplifying it, but more of a vibes guy and more of a guy just kind of seeing things, working with hitters and doing it that way, while the other coaches that they have deal with the analytics and all of that.
He's maybe that's why they did bring him in, Ken, is just to not have all the analytics in their head and just try to be more of a player and go hit. But it might be time for me. It might be time for me to bring back my shirt that says "I know the Boone" that he gave me once. He's like, "You have to be a friend of mine." He gave me a shirt that said "I know the Boone."
Personally, I'm just happy he's back in the game. We need more guys with his kinds of personality because he is a live wire.
Yeah, he's an entertaining soundbite. And like Ken mentioned, he's a podcaster, right? And a different kind of podcaster. I know Casey had a show too, but it's a little more tempered. Bret Boone will get after it. So I hope that he gives us some money quotes. He is fun to cover. What do you think this says about the state of the game when we do get guys mid-season jumping in like this, right? Out of left field. I think Casey's a great comp, right? They're both former big leaguers. They were not touching anything in the coaching world during that time period. They're both doing little media stuff, and then they just hop right into the mix of a very serious baseball season.
To me, it's surprising because of just what you said. These guys are not part of the mix, so to speak. They're not in the game, really. Now, Casey, as AJ mentioned, was on MLB Network, or maybe you mentioned it, Scott. He was kind of in the mix to some degree. Boone has not really been. And again, when you go in now, when you've been out a little bit, even if you've been out a year, things change in a year. More data becomes available, different kinds of data becomes available. But again, with teams using multiple hitting coaches, multiple pitching coaches, there can be room for everything. And I believe that's where this is going, and that's where it's right now. You have a coach to do A, a coach to do B, a coach to do C. They all, of course, have overlapping duties as well, but perhaps there is a place for the ex-big leaguer, again, who has a great knowledge of the game that has been, frankly, not taken seriously enough over the past few years. And in addition to the driveline kinds of coaches and the other data-driven kinds of coaches and the unorthodox places that they come from, we can have the standard type of coach, or at least the one that used to be more prominent, and kind of mix it all together. That is what would be great to see, and it would reflect a balance that we have not seen necessarily over the past several years, and I would like to see that kind of balance come back into the game.
It is complicated enough to figure out what type of car you want, But when it comes to pricing and best time to buy and all of that information that you're looking for, Car Gurus is the only destination that you should be thinking about, Kratz. Why?
Because I don't have to question what the price is. It's going to be there. If the price changes and comes down to where I want it to be, bang, I get a notification. Car Gurus is giving it to me straight, and this is how I want to purchase a car. Not fast. I just want to know what's going on.
With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the U.S. So you can find the best deal, and it's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. So you can buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com, cargurus.com.
Speaking of the blending of old school and new school ways of playing baseball, and I think that we are seeing a lot of that blending happening again, and I think the game is getting healthier for it. But another guy bringing a little bit of an old school, I guess, skill set to the game, Chandler Simpson. Love watching the guy run. So what does he mean to the Tampa Bay Rays? Because he doesn't even seem like he's worried about how hard he's hitting the ball at all. He just wants it between the lines so that he can show you how fast he is.
Trevor, he's meant a lot. And I talked about him at length yesterday on Fair Territory. He's one of my favorite players now. And he's one of my favorite players because he defies everything that teams are looking for now. Exit velocity. No, in his case, exit velocity isn't necessarily a thing that you're chasing. Exit velocity, hitting the ball hard, in his case, it's better off when he doesn't hit the ball hard, when he mishits it, when he's off balance, when a soft ground ball can let him use his speed. He's also a guy that, in addition to this incredible contact ability and speed, is evolving as an outfielder. He's in center field. He's kind of new at the outfield, but he has incredible speed. And eventually the Rays believe that his game will catch up to his running ability. It's not there quite yet. So to me, it's just fascinating to see this player. And here's one other point about him. Fascinating to see a player who, yes, we have WAR to measure him, wins above replacement, and we have all the typical measures. But when you have speed, the way Chandler Simpson offers speed, there is a disruption that takes place in the game that cannot be quantified. He makes the pitchers nervous, obviously, makes them throw more fastballs. He makes fielders react more quickly and sometimes haphazardly. There are all kinds of things that are going on with him that make him kind of an intriguing impact player. Now, what does he need to do offensively to be a true impact player? The way it was described to me, if he hits 300 with a 350 on base and a 350 slug, that's kind of a low slug, then he'll be fine because of all that he offers on the bases and presumably in the future defensively as well. I love watching this guy play. I like players who are different. Luis Arraez is different. This guy is Luis Arraez with speed and defense.
Aaron Gleeman recently wrote an article about Carlos Correa and his struggles. What's going on there? And is it anything to do with health? Or is it a simple, hey, you signed here and we promised you we're going to spend a bunch of money and now we're not doing anything?
Well, he has been dealing with a wrist thing. And he had plantar fasciitis last 2 years, different feet. So health has been part of it. Now, he's not a guy who makes excuses, and he hasn't made excuses. But for what they're paying him, the production is simply not where it needs to be, and he knows this. So the Twins, they're getting Royce Lewis back, or got Royce Lewis back. Let's see what they can do when healthy. They've had a very disappointing start to the season, been better of late. They have a really good rotation, some pieces in the bullpen that you like, but they're in a tough division. Detroit is better. Cleveland is always good. And Kansas City is again showing signs that it could be a contender. So I'm not quite sure where it's going with the Twins, but they need Correa to be healthy and productive. They need Lewis to be healthy and productive. And so far, Buxton has been that, both healthy and productive and really good.
Ken, I know we're a little bit early, so I'm not going to go too crazy, but eventually we are going to shift to some trade talk. I'm wondering if you think that there could be any action over the next, let's call it 6 weeks or so. We did get one from what I recall last year. in Luis Arraez. And there are quite a few clear-cut teams that aren't going to be involved. And because there are so many teams in the wild card discussion that might make the playoffs by a game, let's look back at last year. Diamondbacks just missed. Mets and Braves had the madness at the end of the year. It could be the difference between a team winning a World Series and not. Do you think that could maybe push us to get anything done a little bit early? Because I hear the other side from executives saying, hey, the draft has really messed us up. We just don't want to focus much until after the draft. I'm like, damn, then let's move the draft back to June.
Well, the draft should be back in June. This is an MLB thing that I've never quite understood. And it's kind of wrecked the lives of people in the front offices because they have all of this going on in July. Now, I don't know that MLB much cares about that, and maybe they shouldn't if it's best for the game in their minds. I just don't think the draft is getting that much more attention in July than it did in June. That said, can we see early trades? Of course, it's possible, but it seems to me that the deadline is always what drives the bulk of the activity. And yes, a team like the Marlins acted quickly last year with Arraez. Sandy Alcantara is their big guy this year, and he's struggling right now. He's struggling to regain his equilibrium as a pitcher after missing so much time coming off the Tommy John. So you don't want to trade him now. You want him to get some momentum and go back to being what he once was, if he can get to that. So that's going to be a while. Now, yes, you have teams like Chicago, White Sox, and Colorado Rockies who are already out of it. I'm not sure they have great pieces to move, impact pieces. So teams can just wait and see what develops and transpires. And teams also want to look at them all, their own particular needs, not just at this time, but looking ahead as well. What they might need now is entirely different than what they might need in late July. And why fire the bullet now and trade certain prospects that you might want to preserve for a future deal? So all of these things work against it, Scott. It's not out of the question that a deal could take place in May or early June, late June, but there's a reason, or there are multiple reasons why those deals don't frequently occur.
Ken, you mentioned the draft. Why can't we? Here's a great idea for you. And I didn't come up with this. Someone else did, way smarter than me. To have the draft at the College World Series, right? You have all the best, supposedly the best 8 teams there with the best players. Then you have all the high school kids fly out there that are all committed to these schools. So then these kids get drafted, and then we can watch the college coach try to cry and be like, no, please come. We'll pay you $1 million to come to Florida instead of going for $5 million in the draft. Please think of the drama we could have. It'd be an awesome show. Plus, everybody would be in one location.
I like the idea of the draft at the College World Series, not necessarily for the reason of seeing coaches cry, but it is a logical thing to do. It would kind of increase interest in the College World Series and the draft, in my opinion. But MLB, again, seems hung up with the idea that it's better All-Star Week, and they believe that it is drawing more attention All-Star Week. I just don't see that it's making that much of a difference, that much of a difference where you needed to push it back until July when you had it in June. But people can disagree, and MLB has its reasons, and obviously they're running the league.
Here's the reason. Here's the reason. It saves them a year because a lot of the guys don't get to play that first year because they pushed the draft back so far. The minor league seasons are like, oh, just don't play this year. And by the time they sign and all that, the season's over. Whereas before in June, I signed. So that counted on a year for me to get to my Rule 5 status. They don't want that anymore. It gives them an extra year of control. It's simple. It's a simple reason. They cut the minor leagues, and therefore they don't want as many players, and they don't want to have as many people playing. It's a simple equation. It has nothing to do with popularity. It has to do with they just don't want to do it.
Guys do play.
Yeah, but it's not, but they also changed the rules where that year doesn't count. That year doesn't count, and there's a different rules than what it used to be because you could get to that Rule 5. Had to be protected on the 40-man faster.
All right, AJ, I must admit that I'm not fully well-versed on this particular topic, so I'm going to pass on a comment to your comment.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.